I'm Sidney Katz, the council president of the Montgomery County Council and the council member for the 3rd District. I'm delighted that you're joining us on Zoom for our 6th business briefing. The purpose of these briefings are to help local businesses, nonprofits, and arts organizations navigate through our new economic reality. For our first 5 briefings, we have had 2 panel members join us each time. Today, we are very fortunate to have 3. I'm extremely pleased to be joined today by 3 marvelous art leaders. Suzan Jenkins, CEO of the Arts and Humanities Council of Montgomery County. Monica Jeffries Hazangeles, President and CEO of Strathmore. And Debra Fyodorov, Managing Director of the Robert E. Parilla Performing Arts Center at Montgomery College. They will provide remarks about the impacts of COVID-19 on their arts organizations and discuss the future of performance arts, and then take questions from our Zoom audience. You may please send your questions to the chat box on the right of your screen. Before we start, I'd like to once again thank Susan Kennedy, who has done a marvelous job of moderating all of our briefings. Susan, please let us begin.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a pleasure to be here again with everyone. We're going to start with Suzan Jenkins, the CEO of the Arts and Humanities Council from Montgomery County. Susan, tell us a little bit about your organization and briefly tell us how COVID-19 has affected you.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you, Council President Katz. I'm so honored to be here with my colleagues, Monica and Debra. You know, this is a great opportunity for us to talk about our sector, a sector that's vibrant and a sector that is not only a pretty face, as I say very often, but a cultural driver, economic driver. And so I think that when we think about those 2 things and that we make a sense of place for the county, we're really proud to be here today to talk to you about what has happened to us during the pandemic. So Montgomery County Arts and Humanities Council is a 501c3 nonprofit agency. We are a non-departmental agency of Montgomery County government, but we are completely independent. We have an independent board of directors, and I am independently appointed. I've been here now a dozen years, and it's really been a dozen fantastic years to be here right in my own hometown doing this great work for this great sector. We support about 500 arts and humanities organizations in our sector. So almost every organization you might think of, from Imagination Stage to Create Art Center to Roundhouse to Strathmore, you know, we provide financial, technical, and professional support for these organizations. We're the largest local arts agencies in the state, and in the United States, there's about 5,000 arts and humanities councils, and we are the one from Montgomery County, Maryland. We also support about 2,000 individual artists and scholars, and all of this support that I'm mentioning is support that we provide both financial through our grant making, professional development. We help organizations really think about how to build their own capacity and thrive, and also technical assistance. How do you apply for grants? What do you do should you want to do that work? And so we've been really proud that Montgomery County Arts and Humanities Council, we were established in 1976, and since that time, we've really seen a vibrant growth of the arts and humanities in our county. However, and we also contribute to economic development, and so the county's investment of about $9 million renders about $198 million in financial growth as a result of people coming in, going to the theater, buying dinner, you know, parking, that kind of thing, paying for tickets. It's really a great and very quick economic driver. So what we saw in the first months of the pandemic was really quite devastating. Unlike other sectors, we are highly vulnerable. You know, for those of you who love and support arts and humanities organizations, you know that we are very lean. It's very rare that organizations have reserves. And so when the pandemic hit, we were living already from hand to mouth, and so we had little to live on after that. We saw that in the first several months of the pandemic, I reported to County Council that by right now, this day and time, June 15th, there will be approximately $15 million in losses in our sector, almost double what the county has already invested in past investments. This is particularly jarring because unlike other sectors, we can't just thrust open the doors and have you come back in. We know that the physical distancing, the other concerns that we have about just our facilities themselves. Imagine, how will you sit in a theater from now on with the doors closed and us sitting shoulder to shoulder? Will that happen? It's doubtful. Highly doubtful.
Yeah.
But what happens to these indoor venues?
Yeah.
What happens to these? So this is the kind of devastation we've seen in our sector. We're really grateful that the county is thinking strongly about a supplemental appropriation for our sector because, as my colleague from the Smithsonian noted, it's not going to be that we simply turn on the light and you rush in. It is going to be more like a dimmer switch that turns on slowly, slowly, and the light gets a little bit bigger. And we all think about what outdoor work can we do? How else do we present theater? How else do we sing together? How do you listen to someone having a trumpet solo in front of you? What do you do? And I know that Debbie and Monica will speak to that. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Susan. Monica, you are the CEO of Strathmore, and obviously the doors have been closed there since the pandemic started in March. Tell us about Strathmore. Many of us who are listening and watching are familiar with your venue, but tell us a little bit about Strathmore and briefly tell us, what you've been through these past 3 months.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you, Council President Katz. Nice to see Susan and Debra as well, and everyone listening. Very happy to be here today. Well, Strathmore is a multidisciplinary arts center here in North Bethesda. We have a public-private partnership with Montgomery County. Not a lot of people understand that, but the county actually owns the mansion, the historic mansion, the 2,000-seat concert hall and education center and surrounding 16 acres on our campus. And Strathmore Hall nonprofit, the foundation, since 1981 has operated that campus for the county as the County and Communities Arts Center. We also operate a small 230-seat nightclub called AMP at Pike and Rose, just about a mile from the campus. We include 7 other nonprofit arts partners under our one roof. We have the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra, the National Philharmonic, Levine Music, City Dance, Interplay, and Young Artists of America, all playing together under that wonderful music center canopy. We offer more than 300 programs a year, of which nearly half are presented free or at a reduced price for our community members. We regularly partner with other nonprofit organizations artistically as well as educational partners throughout the community, including Step Africa, the Latin American Youth Center, Thriving Germantown, and many, many others. Some of our mission-centric programs that people are really familiar with are our Artist in Residence program that operates out of the mansion. We have more than 80 artists in that program as alumni now, and they are educating and performing all over the community. We also have a Bloom initiative to expand access to the arts throughout all sectors of our county, and a wonderful conversation series that we're really proud of called the Windows series that is presented in conjunction with our international programming in the concert hall. So the pandemic has, as you can imagine, affected Strathmore quite a bit. We paused operations on March 16th, and the entire staff has been working remotely ever since. We are not able to present performances, operate the mansion, rent our venues. So you can imagine that earned revenue has taken quite a hit. We miss our wonderful colleagues who support our performances. Many of them have been laid off since that time. And our students, who are just at such a wonderful time in their life are so sad to have missed out on end of the year concerts and end of the year collaborations with other students. Our Strathmore Children's Chorus and our Maryland Classic Youth Orchestras did not get to hold those performances live. We did virtually, but not together with their families.
That's tough. It's just been tough all around for everybody. And I'm sure Debbie has the same story for the Robert E. Parilla Performing Arts Center at the college. I know that that's an integral part to the college's cultural life and also the community. Tell us a little bit about what you've experienced.
Well, it has been devastating. And by the way, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much for including the college. We're very grateful for the support of the County Council. Our mission is very simple. We house the main stage productions of the academic program. We present a guest artist series and a children's series for the community. We've added a very popular art house film series to that. And we make the venue available to the community on a rental basis. We closed on March 12th and immediately began by canceling a children's performance that was scheduled for March 13th. That was followed by a cancellation of 2 performances of the Q Brothers, which is a hip hop Shakespeare company. The production was produced by John Leguizamo and commissioned by the Globe. We were thrilled to have it coming, and it was canceled. And we had master classes for the community and students scheduled, so that was sad. 2 more children's performances were canceled and an academic production. We were very fortunate. The academic production was modified during rehearsal, and we were able to do that academic show, the student production, on Zoom. Students acted the parts from their homes, and it was a hit. It was wonderful. You can imagine, we opened in 1984, and since that time, we've been able to support our mission statement every year. This is the first time since 1984 that we have ever canceled a rental. And May and June is peak rental season for us, and we've canceled more than 50 rentals. Not only has it been a revenue loss for the college, but most of those performances that are canceled are revenue generating for the arts organizations that are renting. So it's a double hit for everyone. It's been very difficult. We were very fortunate that I was able to work with our distributor for our art house film series this year, and we've been able to stream those films. I can't stream them in a public broadcast, but everyone who's reserved a ticket, we're emailing links to them and they can watch the films at home. I thought that was going to be not too successful because we're competing with Netflix and Prime now, but we've got over 1,300 people that have signed up for the film. So we're delighted that that's been a hit, and I'm planning to extend that into the fall and spring. We'll keep it up if we end up opening our doors. If we don't, we'll have some programming available for the community.
That's terrific.
Yeah, we're also working with, we have no idea when we'll be back. And right now, a major concern is what we're doing for the holiday programming in December. We house a minimum of 22 Nutcracker performances for the community every year. And that will be a devastating revenue loss for the arts organizations involved. If we're able to open with social distancing, we certainly will, but we're getting cameras and we're hoping to be able to stream those performances to generate some revenue for the arts organizations involved.
Well, let me transition to a question from there. And obviously, the governor has started his reopening plan, and the county is following as they see fit for our numbers here. And by the looks of the reopening plan, nothing's going to happen for the arts and culture community until phase 3. How have you been able to pivot and still provide that necessary contact with the arts? I mean, we need the arts. It's sort of a mirror for us to reflect and grow, and not to have that as a society, it is a huge loss. How are you pivoting to provide, these wonderful opportunities for our community? Monica, do you have anything you can share with us?
Yeah, sure. Well, within days of the closing, our team announced a really amazing complement of online programming to help keep audiences engaged. We've got Live from the Living Room every Wednesday evening, family jams every Saturday morning, an online book club, creative writing workshops, gallery talk and tours, and we've rescheduled more than 100 programs. We also reached out really quickly to Montgomery County Public Schools and many of our direct service partners to put together a really robust online library of more than 100 educational guides and videos for all of our students in our Bloom communities. And then we've created some special instructional videos and series that we've put up online for partners that we specifically work with. The 4th and 5th graders at Joanne Lelick Elementary. We're working with Thriving Germantown to do Spanish language concerts for that community. And at Good Hope Neighborhood Recreation Center, where we're a partner, we've put stepping videos up online.
That's nice. Susan, how about your community? And then I'm sorry, Sidney, I just stepped on it. Did you?
No, please.
Okay, Susan, how about your community? And obviously funding is huge, money. People need to make money. These individual performing artists need to have a salary. Have they been able to pivot and still be able to collect some income?
We've seen an amazing pivot, but I think across our sector, we see that there are challenges to try to figure out how to pivot from free to paid. And that's always going to be of issue. We have no issue presenting creative work online. People have been doing an amazing set of different kinds of things. People have been getting together in quarantine groups, maybe just a few musicians, to offer something online. People have put together recordings with musicians in vastly different places to kind of have it engineered into one performance. We've seen that in theater also. We've seen virtual galleries going on. But the pivot, Susan, the real pivot is pivot from free to paid, because once things are free, and there's still many, many people that believe if it's on the internet, shouldn't it be free? And so this idea of an education along with being able to serve our communities and make that pivot. We see, new technologies coming up, Patreon, Stage It, lots and lots of other new technologies we see coming up that are trying to meet this need. The idea, though, is really looking kind of, if you will, telling my age, at the Grateful Dead. And looking at the model that the Grateful Dead, they gave away all of their concerts. You were able to go to a concert and videotape and whatever for free. And it's really looking at now, the whole industry is looking at how do you take your discrete offering, offer enough to make people want you, and then when they come to you, then how do you translate that to paid so that you can earn a living? And I think that what the new business models that we'll see, especially as different phases of the government open, we're going to see more of some combination pack of some live type performance where people are physically distanced, combined with an opportunity to get that streaming to those who can't make it at all, and then a discrete product, perhaps a recording or access to the artist, or a combination of that we'll see offered then to try to generate the income. I don't think we have it right yet, but I think we're moving very quickly in that direction.
And I was, thank you all. That was very interesting. And that was similar to what my question was going to be. The platform, and Susan, you had mentioned a couple of them, but the platform that they now have, that someone would, I guess, subscribe to, is that what happens? You would buy a ticket to a performance through?
Right. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, please.
So that's what Patreon is. You go there and somebody is staging a concert and you buy a ticket. And you buy a ticket for, quite a bit less. For example, my colleague, who's an NEA jazz master in Baltimore, he has a club by the name of Keystone Corner. And so you're able to see these discrete jazz performances for $10 a ticket. Now, we know that if you're going to go in a club, that there's artist performing rights that need to be paid. The artists themselves need to pay, the rental of the drum kit, that all needs to be paid. That's all what goes into the price of a ticket. And so when they're looking at it now, they're trying to figure out, how do I pay the artist? How do I deal with the technology? But how do I offer it at a price point that the public is willing to pay from their couch? And this is the thing that we're going to have to work with, because at any given moment, you could also go online and see things for free. There's a lot of free competition.
Is
So
the sound quality good?
it can be. Now, I understand that Stage It is something that my colleagues have been working with, and it sounds a lot better. But that means that a lot of people are going to have to make the pivot from being able to do a demo recording for your fellow musicians on your laptop versus a very sophisticated piece of technical equipment to let you make the kind of recording or presentation that the public would buy. And that's the pivot that we understand that we need to do. But if you've been quarantined at home and you haven't been working for months and all of your tours have been canceled, the opportunity to buy that kind of equipment is much
Sure.
less. And so this, you know, it's such a very, very, very thin ice that we're on, and a very delicate balance of trying to figure out how to get to the next phase.
Well, and before we actually started broadcasting, and I guess it was Monica and I were chatting, and I said, you know, even when, let's think in the positive here, even when the government says you can come back and be inside the building, but you can't be like you were before. You can't be shoulder to shoulder. You can sell a half, you can sell a third, you can sell the number of tickets that you know people would have the safe distance between. Is that a business plan that could even keep somebody in business? Because I mean, if you could only sell a third of your tickets, there's a reason that the government subsidizes, and for good reason, the arts world, the arts community. So if you could stay in business just selling a third of your tickets, you might not have needed as much governmental assistance along the way. You know what I'm saying? So is that a business plan that could work even?
I think that is the quandary that we're in. And for an organization like Strathmore, no, that's not a financial model that can be perpetuated. However, we are resilient, and this sector is known for its creativity, and we are having to think about our venues and our spaces and our outdoor spaces in new and different ways. We are looking at using this space for rehearsals that need to be distanced. We are thinking about that combination of live and streamed performance. We're having quite a bit of good response so far with regard to online educational programs for a fee. You know, parents pay for things for their children that they wouldn't for themselves necessarily. So we are finding that we feel we can offer solid value for educational programs in particular, and our patrons are willing to invest in those. And I think membership is another place where organizations will find some success and keep their audiences engaged and involved.
Well,
We have a lot. Oh, go ahead.
Please.
Sorry, Sidney. We have some questions that have come in, and some of them are similar in nature, and I think we can sort of combine them. We have a couple that came in from the Olney Theater in regards to, I'll read one of the sentences from Josh Ford. It says, the guidance from the governor's office for recreation and entertainment seemed dedicated almost exclusively to the amusement park and boardwalk sectors and had little guidance for performing arts organizations. When will guidance come out from the county? It looks like we're not going to see anything until stage 3 or 4. Are we waiting for the governor to say something first before we decide what we're going to do with this particular sector, Sidney?
Well, I think there again, it's watch this space. The Montgomery County cannot go further than what the governor is saying, but we certainly could be less than what the governor is saying. So you know, he literally he's the first person that would actually have the part of the discussion, and then we have to look at the numbers. I mean, the public health officer, Dr. Gales, actually has to look at the numbers and say, and right now, may it continue. Right now, our numbers are looking pretty good. I mean, we're trending in the way that we should be trending. We're certainly still in a crisis, but it's not nearly the same amount of crisis that we had before. And not to throw cold water on the topic, but there is a possibility that this could reoccur. And so we have to keep that in mind as well. But yes.
Yeah. Debbie, you mentioned you're thinking ahead already to the holidays and your holiday program. Talk a little bit about that forward thinking of planning and budgeting for those performances, and how much time you need to do that, and sitting here and waiting for the go ahead that you could go ahead and make plans for your future.
Well, it's an interesting dilemma. And one of the things I'd like to mention is that I think we're all faced with this same issue. We're typically presenters, the Baltimore Symphony at Strathmore or Maryland Youth Ballet at the Parilla Performing Arts Center. They bring a production in and we present it. We are transitioning now to becoming producers. We're setting the theater up. We don't typically record every performance we have. So we don't have a library of materials to pull to start streaming. And largely it's because most of this is protected content and you have to be able to get a license to broadcast it. So lots of issues to sort out, setting the cameras up, training technicians to videotape these productions. It will probably mean more labor will be involved to be able to stream this, but we are definitely planning that we're moving in that direction. And when we get back in, if we're social distancing, and as mentioned previously, we're anticipating maybe being able to sell 20% of what we did in the past. So we need to get ourselves in a position where we can stream a live performance on stage and have partial audience in the house. If we can't get in with an audience, we're hoping to be able to social distance with cast and performers, videotape, and then stream the performances without an audience. That's where we're going right now. And we're working with our rental clients, and everyone's interested in doing that. So we're moving forward as quickly as we can.
So I'm going to read a statement that just came in from Ray Berry from the American Film Institute, which I think is something that we should listen to. Despite the creative adaptations we have all made, the reality that many folks are dealing with is that the revenue streams from these alternative activities is by at least an order of magnitude short of what is needed to sustain operations over time. As PPE money runs out, many of us will be forced to lay off a large portion of our staff, making delivery of these alternative services more difficult. There's a crisis, and with no timeline and no information on what capacities might be, there is no possibility for reasonable financial planning. So that's a sobering, that's a sobering thought. But again, I know in Suzanne's group, you rely a lot on private funding from the public and donors and events, and you can't have any of these with this sort of situation going on.
Yeah, we can. I did want to mention and wondered if my colleague Monica would want also to speak on it. We both serve on the board of Maryland Citizens for the Arts, and as such, we have been asked and tasked to sit on a task force that talks about phased reopening, and Monica has been really instrumental in informing the portion of the reopening concepts that deal with presenting organizations, because as she mentioned, she houses so many different types of presenters under her canopy. She really does have a great knowledge of that. So we have been looking at our sector. Monica, do you want to speak to that?
Oh, thank you.
I will, before you begin, Monica, we are almost out of time, so I have to make it about 30 seconds if you don't mind.
You bet. And Ray and I are sitting with Joe Frandoni from the Arts and Humanities Council on the county version of that recovery task force. And I think what our groups have primarily been talking about is how do organizations welcome the public back to their spaces. What we're discovering is that not a lot of conversation has been had to make regulations consistent across different sectors. And I know that was part of the conversation yesterday that Ray and I and others were having, and it is certainly going to be one that we continue to focus on.
Okay, Mr. President, I will let you say goodbye.
Well, thank you very, very much. We certainly prove that when you have this topic, that it's obviously very, very interesting, and the half an hour goes pretty quickly. So thank you, ladies, very, very much for being with us. I learned quite a bit, and we know that we need to continue to work together to make certain that our arts community stays as strong as it can possibly stay. Thank you for being here.